Okay, everyone. So we're starting the second modern midrash, and this week it's going to be about Noah's wife, Noah's nameless wife, um, and um, we'll give her a name. This is usually you think of the ark looking a little bit different, but this is probably the ark probably looked more like this than the. All of you should be muting yourselves. Thank you. All of you mute yourselves.
Can you see that?
Okay, I just muted Doris. Okay. So if you look at this particular picture, which is a picture from the Venetian School, you'll see by Jacob Bassano, you'll see that we see women here, right? Noah's wife, probably that's this one over here, I would imagine, but maybe not. And the three wives of the sons. Okay, so we have women in this particular picture getting ready. And we also have a woman in here as well with the animals entering. This is the tapestry that actually is in Poland right now. And that a few years ago, actually, there was a big thing in the museum there. The tapestry was originally done in the Brussels 16th century, but they had the whole tapestry in the art collection there. Okay, and let's start from the beginning. So when you look at the ancient, we're not going to look at the whole story, obviously. I assume that everyone knows the story. And anyway, we're going to be putting in, we're going to be focusing on Noah's wife. So if we look at some of the ancient midrashim on Noah, we look at two from Tanhuma and one from Midrash HaGadol. Notice it's usually the emphasis is on Noah. Why is he called righteous? Because he fed the creatures, all right? The whole 12 months that Noah was in the ark, neither he nor his family tasted sleep because they were responsible. But notice he's the one who brought the branches for the elephants, right? So in other words, he's the one who didn't sleep, right? And when Noah was late in feeding the lions, he was the one who was bitten by the lions and went away leaping. In other words, the focus is on him. But then in Midrash HaGadol, which I refer to very often when we look at Penina Edelman's book, Praise the Works, a woman of valor who can find, this is the wife of Noah. Now notice, what's her claim for fame? Who caused her husband to be righteous. In other words, that's her claim for fame. Notice she doesn't have a name here. But you alone have I found righteous. In other words, again, the focus is on him, right? But it says her deeds and her daughters' deeds, daughter-in-law's deeds were far beyond the deeds of the generation of the flood. Okay, so this is, but you also have some ideas here when we're looking at Noah's wife, that Noah's wife also, because she's going to be the new person. Everyone else has been, everyone is dead except for the Noah family, right? And so she's going to be like a second Eve, except here she doesn't have any more children. She will have grandchildren, but not right. And so that Noah is like a new Adam, and his wife now will become the mother of all humans. This is from a wonderful website. Robin Conji has fascinating things to say, and I always love to look and see what she has to say from a very feminist perspective. And I'll be quoting from her quite a bit here. And so she is arguing, how come we don't know anything about her? She said, we her descendants should know who she was, right? So she starts out by saying, first of all, we can assume that Mrs. Noah, just like Mr. Noah, was moral and just. Otherwise, she would not have been saved from the flood, right? So in other words, it's not only he who was righteous, she probably was righteous as well. So we can't negate the possible righteousness of his wife, right? Beyond this assumption, the Bible itself does sideline the woman, right? And she doesn't do anything like Eve. She doesn't eat fruit. She doesn't cause any trouble. So she doesn't really, in the Torah, she doesn't get any credit whatsoever, right? And of course, she doesn't have a name. However, a lot of rabbinical and Christian and Muslim commentators have given her at least 103 names. And in the Jewish tradition, she's mostly known by the name of Naamah, right? And the Midrash about Noah's wife is very vast in the Midrash, right? And by the way, just let's see how we come to the name Naamah. Because Naamah, here's Adam and Eve, here's Abel and Cain and Seth, all right? And then we know what happened to Cain. And then Seth, who's the one who's going to continue humanity, Seth gives birth to Enosh, right? Enosh is another name also for humanity. And according to the Midrash, he supposedly marries Naamah. And then Naamah ends up with Methuselah, Lamech, and Noach. But here, Naamah is actually given as the name. That's where the name Naamah comes from. But in the Midrash, the name Naamah also moves to become Noah's wife. And so a lot of the names which were chosen, the 103 names of Noah's wife which was chosen, are names, very strange names. And sometimes the names are names of wicked women, all right? And why wicked women? Because they want to make her like Eve or Delilah or Lot's wife to show that she betrayed her husband. So you have here in some of the ancient traditions, you actually have her turned into an evil person, and that through, I'll just read what it says here in this book by Frances Lee Utley. That's not a book, in a journal, written in 1941, by the way. She betrayed her husband to the devil. Through her legendary self, the devil learned that Noah was building an ark, and he hindered him, all right? What happened? With her help, Satan entered the ark and gnawed a hole in the bottom, right? There's even a rumor to the effect that she was seduced by the devil, right? So then her story sounds a little bit like the account of Eve, right? Whose apple eating was not the only sin she learned from Satan, right? So very often what happens is the stories of the fall and the fall of Adam and Eve and the deluge of the flood become very intermingled, all right? So, and then you have other, wicked women who are mentioned. As far as the Bible is concerned, the only sin that Naamah had is that she came from Cain's, she's a progeny from Cain's side, right? However, a lot of rabbinical commentators had her having a romance with the falling angel Azazel, who was the offspring of a demon. So this is really fascinating that you have this. You have lots and lots of people who in their articles have noticed that Mrs. Noah is absent. And when I was Googling to look at some of the things about Noah's wife, I found these particular articles. Noah's wife again, Noah and his wife, a note on 3 English miracle plays, Mrs. Noah and didactic abuses, a note on what Noah's wife, the first woman, wives and mothers in Jubilee. So you have here a whole bunch of people who are preoccupied with Noah's wife and the fact that she's absent, and they want to give her some presents, right? Here you see a very well-known picture. I don't remember its provenance, but you can see here Mrs. Noah together with Noah sending off the dove, and here's one of the children. This is a pewter. Very often Noah's wife is associated with holding the doves in the tradition. So here you have a pewter figure, a modern pewter figure of the doves. And here you have, this has nothing to do with Noah's wife, but if you look at this particular picture, which appears in a children's Bible in 1860 with Noah cursing Cain, you can see in the background, right? He's pointing to the son, presumably Ham, who witnessed his nakedness, right? But in the background, you see some women who also are not too happy about what's going on. And this particular picture, I don't think he had that in mind. However, this particular picture leads us to a subject which is interesting, which is the fact that, and this Robin Cohen points out in her article, she points out that Ham is mentioned as being a father of Canaan, right? And later on, when there's a transgression, the same thing happens, that Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father. The whole idea that Ham became a father at the same time that he behaved badly. She makes a very interesting connection, Robin Cohen, which is that Leviticus 18 says that the children of Israel should not perform the practice of the land of Canaan, which is the culture of descendants of Ham, right? Including the nakedness of one's father. And the Hebrew erva is, which has to do with incest, is usually associated with women and not with men. And so she goes ahead and she says that very often you have incestuous acts which were about inner family power struggles. In other words, like with Reuben and Bilhah, for example, or Avshalom and David's wives, right? And very often, so you have here the idea that an ambitious son who attempted to sexually compromise his mother. So now we have hints that perhaps it wasn't the father who was compromised, but possibly the mother who was compromised, which is a very interesting association. And this, if you want, is sort of the realm of Midrash as well, right? So, so in a book by Scott, an article by Scott Hahn, A Father Who Keeps His Promises, which Robin Cohen quotes in her article, that's exactly what Ham was doing. Ham was trying to usurp his father's authority by sleeping with his mother, right? This reflects a pattern found elsewhere. I mentioned Reuben already. I mentioned Absalom. And so that the whole idea of a man sleeping with, right? A man sleeping with his wife's concubines is a way to show that he is the next in line. Penina, this is also a quotation from Robert Cohen, but she also mentions Penina Edelman, whose book I use all the time. And she has us imagine the life that Mrs. Noah led. And by the way, when I was reading this, I just thought I could not think of what happened on October 7th. She witnessed the death of her friends and neighbors. Then imagine her trapped in a ship full of wild animals for 40 days and nights. I thought about the hostages then. Finally, the ark came to rest, and together with her family, she had to start life over again. And then just when the vineyards had come to fruition and the gardens could feed her family, just when she thought there could be a new paradise, or at least a clean state to start again. And I thought about the life in the kibbutzim and what a pastoral existence they had. And then she was sexually molested by her own son. This is not an unusual story. It's just that the setting and characters are different than most. And then she goes on and writes, is it not our responsibility to remember the victims of violence? Is it not our turn to tell their stories so that we can change the world? As Penina Edelman expresses it most perfectly, survivors need to tell their tales of survival. And so even though this was written quite a while ago, my association really was a very chilling association. And basically trauma is always, trauma leads us always to associate with what we know at the time. Just a little bit of humor here to intersperse here. You all know the story of Noah's Ark. Noah was a conspiracy theorist too, right? The fact that there was no heating, no global warming until it started raining. In other words, then all of a sudden, and here too, I couldn't not think of what happened. It was Valencia recently, right? And then Noah swimming to shore. Noah's wife, I told you we shouldn't bring the termites. In other words, if you have termites, that's the end of the ark. Okay. So by the way, in popular, so you have here some popular renderings of Noah's wife, and in the movie, no, in the movie about Noah, Jennifer Connelly was Noah's wife, whose name was Joan, which led to the humor here, which was Noah's wife Joan of Arc? No, who in the world would ever think that? They look at each other, and uh, apparently we haven't met. My name is Nim. And then if you look at the bottom of this, it says here, no one knows the name of Noah's wife because it's never mentioned in the Bible. In other words, even in the humorous cartoon that you have here, there's a need to mention that. There's a novel, some of you may have read it, by Sarah Blake, which is called Naamah. And in this Bible, in this book, we have a reimagining of Noah and his unconventional wife. And in a book review, and this is a beautiful picture, in a book review, some of you may have seen it, in the New York Times, this is the picture, the rendering of Naamah. Notice how she's floating in the water, she's swimming, there's fish and all sorts of animals. A very interesting picture, and the artist is Kaylee McKean, who is an illustrator based in Toronto. And then you have another book, which is called Noah's Wife. And actually, I started to read it, and I thought it was very boring, but if any of you are interested, this is a rendition where she's actually in a mountain town where there's a lot of, her husband is a pastor, and it's lots and lots of rain, and the water swallows up the houses, the zoo, and everything. And so it's a reimagining of a classic story in a new and modern light. Okay, we come now to our first poem, which is written by Emily Schultz, right? Who I just Googled her to see who she was, and it turns out she's written quite a few novels. And her poem is really a very, very interesting poem. So she was born in 1974, raised in Canada, and you could read about her. It turns out that she also is a parent of an autistic child and is an advocate for special needs education in New York City. I don't know if that's relevant, but you could decide for yourself. So I need here 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 readers. Okay, 7 readers. Okay. And this is the first page. Let's go in the order that I see.
You're muted,
Naomi,
Naomi.
yeah, you got muted somehow.
That's how I did it myself. So wait, what number was I up to?
We didn't hear the numbers.
Yeah, the numbers. Okay. So Barbara 1, Toby 2, Joyce 3, Janet 4, Sue 5, Louise 6, and Doreen 7. Did I say, is that what I said? 7? I needed 7 readers? I think so. Okay, so we'll go back to sharing. Okay, reader number 1.
Noah's wife. It was almost a relief when the sky threatened to engulf us. I could say I believed in your dream of a hulking boat made from salvaged wood, broken boards, one that would hold everything inside it. The 100 years you spent collecting splinters, hammering away at an eyesore, a century-long headache. So many questions. Where were the neighbors supposed to walk? How were they to sleep? Really, I could have gone around town, jawing about how you'd become an old door off its hinges. I didn't.
I nearly left many times, the hungry mouths of our 3 sons, eyes like angry stones and tiny faces. When people asked your trade, I learned to say shipbuilder. It sounded like a real job. They looked at me less piteously. At night, when I kissed you, you smelled of sawdust, cypress, and tar. You reeked with the dirt of future disasters. I tried not to choke, but then my skin found your skin beneath your shirt, the music of new muscle. and your conviction was so persuasive. You asked me to trust. I clung to you, murmured, okay, then a litany of yes.
Next reader? So someone in reader number 4 then. We don't hear you. Oh, Janet, if you're muted.
Sorry. When the construction was done, I admired the enormity of it, the way you admire a piece of art you don't quite understand. Fingers flexed to lips, eyes moist, forehead furrowed, and a tight triangle of shoulders. You put an arm around me, squeezed my ass right there in the road. All right, you'd worked hard. I'd allow that. You pulled my neck to your stubbled chin and exhaled the smile of an animal. But exactly what were we to do now? Just then, a yes and no rain began. We tilted our heads back and tasted it.
If
Should I
you have,
continue?
if
Go
you
on.
have a,
Go on.
I'll
If-
read. If you
go
have a
on.
channel to God, I said, dial it now, and where the birds will take shelter when the rooftops and trees are sunken. You said, they'll come with us. Reporters were sent down to the water. They destroyed their shoes,
Sorry.
showing the depth of the rising tide. They warned others to stay home. The horizon blackened and spat. Still they were there as if to anchor us, bright yellow slickers, like small suns in the encroaching dark, water eating them from the legs up.
The rain sang now like an old woman weeping over the dead. Go get the coyotes, you said. I balked. The coyotes, really? I wanted you to leave behind the mice and the snakes too, but you said, one will feed the other. I cocked my head. Who will feed on the snakes, though? But I brought them, all of them. Do you think it is easy to tether 2 wild red coyotes with a leash of twine? Before we finished loading, all the animals bellowing couldn't cover the din of the thickening, driving rain. My hair streamed and my clothes sailed like ghosts.
The deluge swallowed everything I loved, and you watched, a self-righteous grin lighting your face. Our home and all our possessions drowned in a twist of water. The 3 beds where our sons had so recently slept. Imagine an open mouth with no ending. The drilling stream dug up the scent of raw earth like damp tea leaves, roses and rhubarb, then soured to sewage and ruin, all while we bobbed to the top of the dusted surface. The wreckage slapped the sides of the ark like hundreds of hands on drums. We floated up above the windows, then above the buildings, above the cloud of freshly made sea. The smell within was musky and the boat tighter now that we were all inside, its caverns diminished by breathing. The wood groaned and I grasped tight to your chancered hand, hoping hard you wouldn't recall my earlier doubts and decide to cast me out after all this time. Water and sky can take us now, I said. The only question was which would win.
You make it a touch bigger? Thank you. You will not tell me the animals would fornicate constantly. I was grateful to be alive, but didn't expect the porcupines to be masturbators, rubbing on every surface. Did you know this? If you did, why did you not say? You did not tell me our two fleas would multiply, our skin bumpy, reddened with scratching. You did not tell me that nothing would fill the hours except drink, that the alcohol in my mouth would taste cold and hollow as the funneling rain. You built us rooms, but like bad neighbors, the monkeys screeched all night from the floor below.
maybe I ran out of readers. Leah, would you like to read this?
Sure. Yes.
So read.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm trying to get my, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we-
Oh, okay, I thought you couldn't hear me. Okay. The pelting we took from 4 directions would not relent. 40 days, 40 nights, anxiety it would not hold. Worse than your hammering, this rain like sheet metal shaken constantly. We lived mostly in the dark. When we find dry land, the hills will bloom. Everything will be beautiful, you assured me. We will make our lives over and then, but the floor swelled up and side to side, nausea thrummed in my throat. All will be worth it. Do you believe me? Across the deck, the elephants stumbled, trumpeted, and shat. Tell me again, I said. Please, darling, tell me again.
Okay, so this is really cool. Before we go on, so first of all, hello. I see that more people have joined us, and also from California at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
And-
I've been on a Zoom already.
Okay, so we'll continue, but I just wanted to point out to you that we have a couple of more things, and I see Sue is here again. Sue, I took one of your things and but I made it shorter. So, but we can always
Okay.
read the full ones when you share at some point. So let me just go on to the next slide, and this is Sue's life with a tzaddik. But before we actually look at Sue's life with a tzaddik, which is not so different. It's not so different from the poem, right? So you could probably know that because you wrote it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a story that asks to be approached with humor.
right.
So,
But by the way, I don't think of Noah's Ark as a funny story. By the way, and I'm not gonna show you the but I always show you every year just because of the time. But those of you who were with me last year know that I have that horrible movie, which really shows you what a terrible tragedy it is for the people who are left behind. Right. But the people on the boat also. I mean, if you don't have a little bit of humor about the situation that you're in at the time, it's just as insufferable. So, okay, so we're gonna need again some more. We're gonna need some more readers. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 readers. Okay, let me see if I could figure out who did not read yet. Barbara, did you read already? Yes, okay. And Toby, did you read? Okay, Joyce, you read. Janet read. Sue read. Louise?
I didn't.
Okay, we're coming. Louise, okay, now we're coming. Bonnie, all right. Marcia,
Yeah.
Geraldine, and Susan, and Margie. That takes care of 5 for the time being, and then we'll have another round. Just remember your numbers, okay?
I don't remember. Can you
Oh,
say
no.
it again?
Well, who was number 1?
Marcia.
I wasn't.
No,
I can't
Bonnie.
be.
On now.
Bonnie.
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 Bonnie. Yeah, it wasn't me.
Okay,
That's why.
Bonnie's number
That would've
1,
been-
Marcia number 2, Geraldine
Okay,
3,
that I can remember.
Susan 4,
4.
and Margie 5.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So if you're not reading, please mute yourself, please.
Okay, should I start?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. Whoops.
Okay.
Yeah, yes,
Oh,
go.
it's not easy being married to a tzaddik. My silly husband, I love him, but it is not easy. He doesn't know how to say no, no matter how crazy the request. Actually, it's a trait that passes through the men of the family, at least as far as back as Enoch. They turn into crotchety old men, but each as crazy, lovable as the next. So am I blessed or cursed that I have 3 sons and no daughters? You think I'm exaggerating? Let me tell you what I went through with Noah before you judge me. Noah was a fitness freak, and he religiously took a daily walk. And who was his partner on these walks? None other than God himself. Pretty convincing motivation. Maybe Noah was just afraid to play hooky from those daily workouts with God. He didn't want to disappoint his partner. So it seemed that God was angry at mankind, and he cooked up a plan, but he needed a poodle to carry it out. And of course, Noah was the perfect candidate. Noah. Who doesn't know how to say no?
Okay. One day, you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. One day I arrived home from the well, hauling a large bucket on my head and a smaller one in each hand. And I saw something that I didn't understand. Noah had assembled some long pieces of lumber and was laying them out on the ground, pacing off distances. Me. Noah, my love, are you building us a new house? Noah, well, that is one way of looking at it. Me, so do you want to tell me what is another way of looking at it? What is this going to be? A shop? An inn? A zoo? Ah, a zoo. That's exactly what I'm building. A zoo. Was he serious? What on earth has flooded his mind and washed his sense away? See, I was out walking with God. I should have known. Those two are always up to something. God dreams up some plan, and Noah dives right in. What a pair.
Noah, and he was complaining about how wicked mankind has become. So he has decided to put an end to this experiment. Could I believe what Noah was saying? Was our end so near? And if so, why spend your last days building a zoo? Noah, God has asked me to build an ark. And good news, I can bring you and the boys and their wives onto it as well. And then God will bring waters upon earth and flood out the human race. The good news? Why do I think that there is bad news coming? Noah, we will have a bit of company on the ark, 2 of every sort of living things, birds and mammals and creeping things, and that's why I'm building the ark. It will be our own floating zoo. Wait, Noah, remember that Shem is allergic to feline hair, right? And that, oh my gosh, help me.
Yaphet.
Yefet has been afraid of snakes ever since he was bitten as a child. He wants he wants us to live in a rickety boat, and it will be rickety if Noah is the one building it. He can't even hang a picture straight. And with all these animals, you did tell God that this isn't quite a great plan, didn't you? But I knew the answer. This question was rhetorical.
So now we're skipping to the end of the story.
Mhm.
We were all standing on the deck of the ark, the boys and their wives, the mammals. The birds were perched atop the roof, and the creeping creatures were hanging from the walls of the upper ark. Our eyes were searching the horizon. When will she come back? Will our dear Yona return to us, or has she found dry land? No one spoke, or barked, or roared, or chirped, or whirred. It was silent, everyone with their own thoughts. But dusk was upon us, and there was no sign of her. We all reluctantly began our evening routines, disappointed to be spending another night on the ark. I was awakened from a deep sleep by the elephants trumpeting. What was going on? Were the mice teasing the elephants again? Wait, more animals were joining in. It sounded almost like a celebration. What was going on? But before I could even elbow Noah to get up and check out the problem, Yaphet threw open our bedroom door. The dove, she's back. She has an olive branch. Land, blessed
And so the long ordeal was ending. And God must have been feeling rather sheepish about the whole thing. And he knew he needed to somehow thank me. He couldn't send me roses because the bushes had all been washed out. So you know what he did? He created the rainbow for me. It was so beautiful that I had to forgive him. I even let him tell Noah that the rainbow was the sign of a covenant between the two of them, when it was really our little secret. Noah was so happy that he celebrated with a bottle of wine, but that's a different story.
Okay, so what do you think of that? Okay, I know I took a lot out, but I just wanted to give you a flavor of the of that. Did you see any commonalities? I mean, one was poetry and this is prose, but do you see any commonality between what's happening with the writers of modern Midrash, what they're trying to do?
I love it personally. I'm becoming
I
a
do
Sue
too.
fan. Okay, I'm really.
Okay, but we all
I
are.
know. But you know,
Well,
yes, there are some
But I really want
commonalities.
you to think about, I mean, why I bring these as examples of modern Midrash. What are they doing? By the way, I noticed you didn't give her a name. Sue.
Noah's wife. Well,
I can't remember if I addressed that.
think-
I know there's a footnote, but I don't remember if I,
Okay, this is the original
Give her-
one that you gave me a long time ago, so
right, right.
may have made, I didn't look at your book. This is the original one. So you may have made changes. Marsha,
well, none of the women have names. The wives of the sons don't have names either. I
The
think
sons
that
have
And actually,
names.
sons have names.
The
the
there.
sons
sons
have
have names,
names.
but the wives don't. They're it, you know. And if God really wanted, you know, us to get a good lesson out of this, then he should have had cooperation from the other humans on the ark.
okay. The fact that there is no woman's voice in the
No,
original.
there is no woman's voice in there.
Right.
You know, I mean, that was a very huge building project. If you look at the books from the 16th and 17th century, they have meticulous plans of the ark, and it's huge. And how could one man, unless he had the Spirit of God in him, and they did it together, as you say, I mean, there was no reason that the family, it was not a family operation.
But again, I want to just think a little bit about when we
There
talk
was
about
no
modern,
woman's voice there at all.
but when we think about what is happening with modern Midrash, with the poetry and this, yes, Leah, you're muted right now.
Well, modern midrash is to give woman a voice.
Oh,
So that
yeah.
is the basic thing. But I mean, and this story, I love your stories, Sue. This story is good and it's humorous, but I mean, you could envision that he hired people to help him. There's nowhere where it says he did it alone. He
Oh,
could have had
absolutely,
his
he
sons
did.
helping him. Maybe his sons were helping him.
Oh,
Yeah,
So
his son- right, yeah. Okay. No, we don't know. It's Stevie,
don't
and then
know
I
that.
have one, and then I have one more poem. Yes, Stevie.
So if Midrash in general is to give a backstory or fill in the blanks for what isn't in the Torah, then modern Midrash then gives us the backstory with today's viewpoint. And specifically for the modern Midrash that you happen to pick is mostly feminist, but there is some modern Midrash now that is oriented to gays and oriented to almost every single group. It just appeals to other groups. So, but it's the fact that we're taking Midrash, we're giving a backstory to everybody, we're giving a life to some characters where they don't really have a life, but it's in a feminist viewpoint, at least for this class.
Okay, so just one, yeah, okay, quickly, because I have one more thing to do, yeah. And
Okay, I just want to, modern midrash in that respect is not that different than classical midrash. When you look at a character like Serach bat Asher, that's mentioned in 2 genealogical lists, and the classical midrash, the rabbis made this whole humongous backstory about her. And also there's a lot of midrashim where biblical characters are keeping kosher, Lot is observing Passover, things that are totally, in the future. Nidav, you have biblical women who observe the things that don't come until halacha. So modern midrash, by making it relevant to today, is actually following in rabbinic tradition, where the rabbis were trying to make the Tanakh relevant to their lives as well.
Right,
So
I do. Okay, I'm cutting you short, but only because I have to finish early today. And I have one more, we have one more, wait, let me see, how many readers do I need? 1, 2, I need 4 readers, okay? Is there anyone who hasn't read yet?
I haven't.
Francine,
Okay, so.
Francine,
What? I don't think Francine wants to read.
you don't want to read, Francine?
Debbie, are you still there? So Debbie, would you like to read? You read reader number 2. And Susan, I know you always like to read number 3, and Sue, we'll give you a chance to read again. So that's number 4. Okay, so remember your numbers, Stevie 1, 2, Susan 3, and 4. Okay, let me just do the share again. So what we're going to see now is it's one of my favorites, and that's why I don't want to miss up on it. So this is by Ellen Taylor. She's a professor at the University of Maine, and she teaches writing, but she also has poetry collections. So she's a real poet, right? You know, that she writes 3 poetry collections that she has here. So I actually love what she's done here. Now she talks about her poem. Oh, actually, we need only 3 readers. So whoever's reading the first one could actually read these. You could read the notes. Okay, so whoever was reading first, read the notes.
Okay. The genesis of this poem was indeed one of trivia. First, while preparing a course on poetry of the Holocaust, I learned that the Old Testament of my Catholic school days was indeed written for the Jewish people. 2 ideologies sharing the same set of stories gave them new interest to me. Second, a neighbor of mine, the delightful poet Kate Barnes, loaned me a book on Old Testament figures in art. Then I saw Noah and his sons in all their visual glory, while women were largely absent. Third, there was a happy coincidence at the University of Maine in Augusta, where I teach. Each year we had an honors colloquium theme, and this year that theme was immigration. It struck me that Noah and his unnamed wife, as well as their 3 named sons and their unnamed wives, are one of the first immigrant families in literature. Forced to relocate due to rising waters, another familiar theme in our recent history. They begin life in a new land. She remains unnamed despite her integral role in the whole journey. So I named her, and with proverbial poetic license took her away.
Okay, so now we come to the poem. So, okay, here we go.
First, let's name her. Let's call her Patience. With Noah, she bore 3 sons, documented with names, Shem, Ham, and Japhet. The earth is filled with violence, God told Noah. Correct. Make thee an ark, 3 stories enough room for all 3 sons, their wives too. Patience, Noah gushed. God is sending a flood, the likes of which we've never seen. We're all set to sea together, as if 8 people isn't enough in a homemade boat of gopher wood, destination unknown, he added. We need 2 of every living thing we can find, 1 male and 1 female. Fowl, cattle, everything that creeps or crawls. And remember, bring enough food for everyone. Even serpents need to eat. Patience was tried, all those mouths to feed,
All that squawking, honking, braying, and bang. Noah, how am I supposed to cook and clean for this crowd? Noah, at 600 years old, was having a midlife crisis.
Patience couldn't imagine going on like this for another few hundred years. Lord have mercy. Then the rain began, and for 40 days and 40 nights, you know the story, it rained and rained and it rained. Patience prevailed, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, doing laundry, picking up after the clean and not so clean pairs. It got old fast. The sons' wives, nameless, didn't pick up, complained about the food, the smells, the tight quarters. The ark felt smaller and smaller with each wet day, when after 150 days, the water receded and receded until Patience could see the tips of mountains, pinnacles poking up from the water like miraculous dry land. The sky was brightening, the color of eggs.
A brave dove was sent off, the female, to look for ground. She returned with the proverbial olive branch. Praise the Lord, Patience thought. Noah removed the covering from the ark, and the ground was dry. The whole family disembarked, the sons, their wives, and all the beasts, clean and not so clean. The fowl, cattle, and every living thing Patience had fed and picked up after for all those months. Once off that boat, Patience bolted like a horse, never to be heard from again, in Genesis or anywhere else. Can you
Absolutely.
blame
Good for
her?
Good for
I love
her.
it. Isn't that amazing? It's really lovely. So we won't have time for this, but I just want to bring to your attention that Shel Silverstein has the unicorn. You could go listen to it yourselves afterwards. It's actually really cute, and basically, if you don't know it, it's really great. The long time when the earth was green, there were more kinds of animals than you've ever seen, alligators, whatever. He goes on and on and on, and he mentions the unicorn, right? And he goes on and he talks about the camels, chimpanzees, the cats and elephant. Oops, sorry, something just. Oops, I just moved something by mistake. And he goes on, and then at the end you have here waiting for the unicorn. At the end, you'll never see a unicorn at the end. So in other words, the unicorn looked up from the ark, and basically the unicorn got drowned. It's a lovely little song, and you can listen to it. So let me first of all stop the recording. Stop